Greetings and welcome. The time has finally arrived for our 2022 California Seth Conference. Obviously, everything is transpiring online, but we invite you to tap into our co-creative collective field of consciousness and experience this conference multidimensionally, as well as through the online format that we have. So it's super exciting to be here. And obviously we're here to share Seth, the Seth material, and all Seth-inspired ideas and productions. So this is our theme for this year. Our theme is Seth Applied, right? Because we're all about applying the material in our daily lives. You know, not just reading the books, but actually putting it into action. So practical Seth or Seth Applied is one way of saying that. So I will be your host, along with Virginia, who will help us out with the Q&A sections. And of course, Jeff is our mastermind, techno wizard, super skilled co-producer who's behind the scenes. You might see him here and there, but he's going to be behind the scenes making the magic happen, right? Because there's a lot that goes into these online productions. So we're thankful for him. And of course, I would just want to say, you know, we're not like broadcast professionals. And we humorously often say to each other that, you know, this is kind of like a guerrilla conference, right? It's down in the trenches and we're just making it happen, acting on our passion and just diving in, you know what I mean? And may that inspire all of you out there, you know, who are also not quote unquote professionals, but just, you know, roll your sleeves up and make it happen, you know, put the Seth material into practice. So may that inspire all of us to do more of that. Now, if you want to support the conference, of course, we're all volunteers, right? But you can make a donation if you like. So we have a button to that on the YouTube channel and the California Seth Conference website. And of course, you can always support us by subscribing to the YouTube channel, right? That always helps us out as well. So then let's talk about how things are going to flow, right? We have some unusual and fun things this year that we didn't do last year. Last year we had a lot of speakers, and this year we have speakers, but we have some fun things in store too. Some of our speakers, like last year, will have live Q&A, so I will mention who that is as we start introducing the speakers. So for the Q&A, all you have to do is type your questions into the YouTube chat that will be running concurrently with the speaker. Right, so ask your questions, type your questions in while that speaker is doing their presentation, and we will cherry pick the best questions, throw in some of our own, and we'll just have a great time in the Q&A, the live Q&A sections. So as I mentioned, we will have some goodies along the way too. We have some fun things in store, so we're really looking forward to that. So let's talk about today's schedule, right? So today's schedule, we have a nice opening by Mary Fahey. You might remember her hailing out from London. She's going to guide us into a nice opening for the conference. And then followed by that, we're going to have Deb Tejada, right? She's the one who took over the Seth Research Project after Mary Dillman passed away. She's been continuing that work, which is really great and wonderful. As the name implies, Seth Research, right? Researching all the background. So we'll hear from her and she will talk about the Seth Research Project. After that, we have a fun, experimental, playful adventure through the arts, right? So that will be the Black Sheep artists. We're going to see all kinds of Seth-inspired art, so that should be fun as well. And then we will have a live Q&A with Larry Rush, who is the founder of some of these groups. So that will be our first live Q&A of the conference. And following that, after we hear from the Black Sheep artists and view all their art, we are going to have Helen Stewart. And she also is going to have a live Q&A. So we'll have two back-to-back live Q&A sections, one after the other. So get all your questions ready for them. And we will wrap things up with Kyron O'Keefe, who will not have a Q&A. So that is our lineup for today. And so let's go ahead and kick things off with Mary Fahey. Let's welcome her to our digital and multidimensional stage.
Hello everyone, it's Mary Fahey here. from London town. I'm just going to give you feedback from last year's conference, where I was actually quite strongly saying I wouldn't have any vaccine, the COVID-19 vaccine, and I wouldn't be getting COVID either. Well, what a change. I obviously focused on those in a way that, was counterproductive, I don't know. But basically, because of the pressure here in London, I had 2 of the jabs, and then on Christmas Eve, I came down with the COVID virus. I was very poorly indeed for about 4 days. So Christmas just got cancelled, right? But I was in and out of sleep. It was just a very strange time. And I'd listened to recordings of the Seth material. And about day 3 or 4, I bumped into one of the recordings of Tom, who's co-organised with the Seth Conference. And I have to say, Tom, it was a short meditation, and I listened to it as I fell in and out of sleep. But when I woke up later in that day, there was a profound change in me, that from feeling very maudlin and sorry for myself, I suddenly felt light, and a sense of well-being was creeping in, and the emotions of appreciation and gratitude were really strongly within me. And I started talking to myself saying, I'm in a lovely warm bed, I've got a lovely warm house, I've got friends, neighbours and family all looking out for me. I get my pension monthly, I don't have to do or be anywhere. So I'm blessed. And from that moment on, I really started to recover. I began to eat. I started making soups. And it was so affirmative. And so I decided, rather than looking at how well I'm doing or how poorly I'm doing, I thought, what do I want to do in the next week or so? And I thought, I'd like to meet 2 of my friends in the coffee shop at the top of the market, sitting outside, of course, because it was still lockdown, having coffee. And that's exactly what I did. I went out and I felt fine. It took me a few more weeks to get my energy and full well-being and appetite back. But here I am, alive and kicking, and all is well. So how about that? From one reality to another reality, 100% change. Hello everyone, Mary Catherine here from London town. I'm about to lead you in a meditation at the opening of this wonderful Seth Conference. And how I work, basically I focus on the breath, and importantly I ask you to pay attention to your physical comfortability so that you can forget about the body while we work on the inner parts of ourselves. So check that you can sit comfortably or lying down. See if your back is comfortably straight, allowing all the energy centers along the spine to open up. Check you're warm enough, or if need be, cool enough. And as we're ready to begin now, have your palm of your hands facing upwards, either on your lap or if you're on the floor by your sides. It's another gesture to open to receive as the palms lie upwards. Okay, join with me now, taking a full deep breath in through the nose if you can. Breathing in peace. Hold, 2, 3, 4, and release. A lovely full out breath through the mouth in a blowing motion. Again, breathe in deeply, breathing in peace. Hold, 2, 3, 4, and release. One more time, breathing in peace. 2, 3, 4, and release. Breathing normally now. Physical eyes closing down. Top of the head relaxed. Relax. Turning your attention once again to your in-breath. Breathing in peace. Only peace as you begin to slow down. Slowing down. Slowing down. Breathing in peace. Opening to relaxation. Deep relaxation. Going deeper and deeper and deeper within. As you breathe in peace this time, allow the breath to move through the body, collecting any upset, any fatigue, any emotion no longer required, collected on the breath as you release now on a deep out-breath. Breathing out fatigue, upset, or any emotion you no longer require. Breathe it all away. As you breathe in peace and breathe out peace. Breathing in peace, breathing out peace. Allowing the breath to move through your body, inside your body and just outside, coming like an aura of light, warmth and a deep peacefulness. Knowing at this moment all is well. All is well. All is well. Turning your attention now to your mind and your thoughts. Just letting your thoughts come up, acknowledging them as a natural part of you. And then imagine your thoughts just floating right away from you towards the door. Letting them go through the door and leaving them there. You don't need them for now. Coming into this moment, a lovely feeling of deep, deep relaxation moving into you, moving through you and all around you. Heartbeat slowing, pulse rate slowing, mind becoming quieter and quieter. And know from this lovely, relaxed state that the everyday noises of life, people talking, cars driving, doors closing, won't touch you at all. You'll remain enjoying the relaxed state, focusing gently on your breathing. The rhythm of the breath as you breathe in, and the rhythm of the breath as you breathe out. focusing quietly on the rhythm of your breath while I'm quiet for just 2 minutes. Coming back to the breath. Coming back to the breath. Coming back to the breath. Gently, very gently now, begin to deepen your breathing. Breathe just a little more deeply. Breathe just a little more deeply. Still owning the truth of your uniqueness and your beauty. Breathe a fuller, deeper breath now. Enjoying a new sense of health, well-being, and vitality. All yours. Breathe the fullest, deepest breath now, as you prepare to come back into the room with me here, moving your fingers and your toes. And when you feel ready, open your eyes, smiling, pleased at the lovely, relaxed inner journey that you created for you. Give yourself a hug now and notice how good you feel. Well done. We're going to end the session now doing some ohms together. Or as our Laurel Davidson says, moos. Okay, so it's O, U, and a lovely full deep breath 3 times. Okay, join with me now. Breathe in deeply. And again, breathe in. One more. There we are, breathing normally now. And as I end this session, I'd like to read to you a short quote from Seth about ohms, actually. It's in The Nature of Personal Reality, page 91 for those avid readers. The ohm sounds contain within them a built-in impetus toward energy and well-being. Well, how about that? Ohm away. Join your hands together with me now, owning that divine part, that energetic part that's in you, in me, in each of us. Thank you for sharing, and let's have a wonderful conference. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you, Mary, for that wonderful opening. Next up now is Deb Tejada. We are super excited to have her because she will be speaking on the Seth Research Project. And we've always been fond of having Mary Dillman at the California Seth Conference. And so we're super happy to have Deb Tejada here so that she can speak to us about the Seth Research Project, how she's continuing the work of Mary Dillman, what's going on, all kinds of tidbits and wonderful information and just knowledge as to how she is continuing to serve the Seth community through this wonderful project. So I will, of course, let her explain all of that because she will be speaking about the Seth Research Project. So she can fill us in and let us know that the work continues and the experiment continues and the Seth Research Project is very much alive and well. You can find her online by looking for, of course, Seth Research Project, and she also has a page and a group on Facebook by the same name, so you can definitely find her that way. So let us now bring her a super warm Seth welcome to our multidimensional and digital stage. Here is Deb Tejada.
Hi there. My name is Deb Tejada, and I'm here to tell you all about the Seth Research Project. Now, I may refer to it as SRP when I'm talking today, just because that's a shorter way for me to say Seth Research Project. I'm a longtime Seth reader, and I remember when I first started reading the books, and I realized that as I was growing up in New Jersey, all of this was going on just one state away. I was really kicking myself for having missed out on the experience of meeting Jane and going to any of the classes. I was a little bit too young at that point to be actually taking part, but it was just so frustrating for me. And then eventually I realized my time had just not come yet to be involved with the Seth material. Then several years ago, I got in touch with Rich Kendall. I had asked him to autograph his book, The Road to Elmira. And in the process, I mentioned to him that I'm a graphic designer. And if he has any projects that come up in the future, feel free to ask me to help him out, because that would mean being more involved with the Seth materials and the people that lived through the Jane Roberts experience. And eventually he did take me up on that, and I ended up working on his last two books. The second one that I worked on, the Potpourri, didn't get published until after he passed away. We had almost finished doing the edits on the book, and then he suddenly passed away. And working with Mary and with Laurel Davies, I was able to get it into print actually the day that his memorial service was. So that was a pretty interesting coincidence, as we say. And then in the process, I had also gotten to know Mary fairly well. While I was working on Rich's books, I think Mary had been given the little book to Leonard by Leonard's family. At that point, he had already passed away. And she was looking to interview people, and she was trying to track him down, and the family said he was gone, but they had some of his things. And one of those was that book that Jane handmade for him when he was in the hospital. And so Mary had Rich ask me if I would work on that, if I was interested in getting that published. And yes, I was, of course. And so we did that. And then I got to know Mary fairly well. She got to know me fairly well. We spoke on the phone quite often. She had me work on some other projects for her, like the Village Voice interviews, transcripts. She had needed some help proofreading her transcripts and then getting those in a form that we could sell them on her website. And a couple of other little things. I worked on her website for her. And then when Rich passed in 2020, it was in the end of April, she approached me about possibly backing her up on the her Seth research project. She and Rich had talked about what would happen to her project if something happened to her. Her goal was to get this 20 plus years of research into the Yale archives, and she just wanted to make sure that it was going to get there. She didn't think she was going to pass away. She had told me several times that she planned to be around for quite a while. But she did ask me, and I said yes, of course. And then, unfortunately, a few months later, she did pass away. Her nephew, David, was living in New Haven at the time that she was sick and then passed away. And so he knew that she wanted to get all of her materials over to me. And between David and her friend Karen, they sent me several cartons. I think it was about 5 huge UPS boxes full of things that Mary had on her shelves related to the Seth Research Project. Some of the, he actually told me he had 50 boxes of materials that he wanted to send to me. He actually offered to drive them out to Colorado. And I said, oh gosh, no, that's such a long trip for you. Why don't we meet somewhere between Connecticut and Colorado, and I'll hire a U-Haul or whatever it takes. But he ended up not doing that. He was going to put things in storage. And he also decided he wanted to move out of New Haven fairly quickly, like by the end of January, I think it was. So I said, oh, please don't put anything in storage. I'll drive out and get everything if I have to. But I did end up getting him to call Yale, the archives there, to see if they would take some of the things that Mary actually had been holding to send over there. Sue Watkins had donated a bunch of things, and so there were some of her boxes, and there were some other boxes Mary had that I don't even know what was in them. But Yale actually went over to her apartment and went through all the boxes of materials and took what they wanted, and so what was left was what was sent to me. And a lot of it's CDs, cassette tapes from when Rich was in the classes, books that Mary had been collecting, some Seth books. I did get an autographed book from Jane and one of her paintings, and a lot of hard drive. Well, let's call them storage devices, external drives. There was a case of external drives. I had no idea what was on them. And then, of course, I got all her digital data off of OneDrive. It was 107 gigabytes of data. And so for the most of the first year, I spent just going through the materials that were sent to me, the physical materials that were sent to me, and just trying to figure out what I had. I still haven't gone through all of the boxes. There were photographs. I did go through all the hard drives that I could get into and printed out indexes just so I knew what was on them. She had not only the OneDrive, 107 gigabytes, but she also had a Dropbox account. And she said the Dropbox was seriously outdated, but then I had to go through every single, I wanted to keep the OneDrive and get rid of Dropbox. And so I had to go through every single file on Dropbox and compare it to the OneDrive files just to make sure that I wasn't going to be getting rid of something that was unique. And I did find quite a few things that were not actually on the OneDrive, so I'm glad I did that way. I also backed up everything to my own external drives, and her filing system, as I've mentioned before, was quite different than what I'm used to. And so there were a lot of duplicates. There are folders that contain the same things that are named differently, and so that's basically what I've been doing. Well, that's, I think, enough of what I've been doing on the Seth Research Project. I'll talk about it a little bit more later on, some other things that I've been working on and what my hopes are for the future with it. But for now, I'd like to talk about the Jane Roberts collection at Yale University. Back in 1979, Jane and Rob decided they were going to have their wills made. And I think it was probably on the recommendation of Tam Mossman, their friend and publisher, that they approached Yale University about getting the Seth materials into their archives at Sterling Sterling Library. Tam was a graduate of Yale University, and he still had some connections there, and so he put Jane and Rob in contact with the proper people. And I'm going to share a quote from Dreams, Evolution, and Value Fulfillment about the archives. We have achieved a situation beneficial to all, for Jane's will and my own each declares that upon death of the survivor of the two of us, our estate is to be donated to the Manuscripts and Archives Division of Yale University Library in New Haven, Connecticut. Our physical effects, even including the Hill House and the car, are few, but our creative work is everything, and so it, and whatever pertains to it, go to a place where all will be preserved and protected, yet made available for study by researchers and lay people alike as it is transmitted there. That's the end of the quote. Although the intention was upon the death of the survivor of the two of them, according to the quote that I just read to you, Rob started gathering documents together right after Jane died. I think it was even a matter of days. And he was also working on a couple of books that needed to get published when Jane died. And so that's when Laurel Davies stepped in. She had been corresponding with Rob and Jane for quite a while. They all knew each other fairly well. And so when she realized what was going on and that Rob needed some help, she offered to come out and help him do whatever he needed, help proofreading books, making copies of things, whatever he needed. And he took her up on that. And so she came out, and Rob and Jane also had a good friend, Debbie Harris. And so not only did Laurel help Rob with books, but the three of them, Debbie, Rob, and Laurel, also started pulling together the Seth materials and making copies of them so that they could be brought over to the Yale archives. I believe Laurel has the majority, if not all, of the original materials, and then the library has copies. So you can read more about that in Rob's foreword in The Magical Approach. Now, if you Google the words Jane Roberts and Yale together, the very first search result that comes up should be the correct one for the Jane Roberts Papers collection at Yale. And so if you go to that page, there's quite a bit of information in there as far as what's in the collection, although actually that is pretty brief information, which is why Mary got involved. There's a search engine there. There's a list of the boxes that you can go through. You can download a PDF of the index of the boxes. There's information on Jane, just a very, very short bio. And also names of other people that have contributed to the collection, like Rich Kendall sent over cassettes from the classes that were recorded. He corresponded quite a bit with Jane and Rob, and so he sent original letters, postcards, drawings, that kind of stuff. Tam Mossman also donated all of the similar things that he had from Jane and Rob. And there are old, one of them is Seth Network International that also donated a lot of materials, their magazines that they had put out, things like that. Probably recordings of the conferences. Hopefully I'll be able to get out to New Haven, one of these days and actually see what's in the collection myself. Although there are 501 cases there, so I have a feeling I'm not going to make it very far going through the boxes. I'll read you a list of things that are in the collection. The collection contains such things as personal journals. Now, those would be Jane's personal journals. Notebooks, fan letters, tons of fan letters. Personal correspondence, Rob's dream and grief journals. Notes, essays, cookbook excerpts, which would be Jane's favorite recipes, I imagine. Healthcare records, poetry, Seth-related magazines, and there were quite a few different magazines in the heyday, put out by various Seth groups. Books and manuscripts, class recordings, which I believe many of them are reel-to-reel because that's the format they were recorded in back in those days. Address books, SciTime and ESP experiment results, handmade greeting cards, hospital stay records, and so on. Mary said when she first visited the Yale Library and saw what was in the collection, she felt overwhelmed. And I'll get into that a little bit more soon. Here are a couple of photos of Sterling I thought you might like to see. This is the exterior of the Sterling Memorial Library at Yale. It opened in 1931. I've seen interior photos of hallways and such, and this place is beautiful. The architecture, to me, is similar to Oxford University's Christ Church in England. Gothic Revival style, very elegant and Harry Potter-esque. It's worth a search to see pictures of the interior. Well, okay, I just had to share one picture, an interior shot. I don't know if this is a hall or what this room is called, but lots of marble and arches, and it's just gorgeous. So maybe just a second interior shot. This place is just amazing. I honestly hope I get to see it someday soon. And this last picture is of Mary in one of the reading rooms inside the Sterling Library. You've probably seen this one before as it's on her website. So let me tell you a little bit about Mary. Mary was born in 1946 in a town called Orono in Minnesota, which is about 10 miles west of Minneapolis. It's probably not a rural town over there anymore. She said her favorite childhood chore on the farm was driving the tractor, which I imagine any kid would love, and hanging out with the barn cats, which her love of cats remained with her for the rest of her life. Her parents also bought a summer home on a lake, and she loved going there with her family. Mary does have a sister, Joby, who lives in Colorado Springs. Here are a couple of quick photos of Mary. Somehow I ended up with her personal family photos, like grandparents, great-grandparents, childhood memories, and which was good for me because it gave me a chance to look at them and scan a couple that I liked. And then I mailed everything off to her nephew so he could share them with his daughters. And so here we go. Here are just a few photos of Mary over the years. First one is 1949. She would have been about 3 years old there. The second one is in 1989, and the third in 2012. Mary spent her adult life working as a real estate appraiser in Minneapolis. She was also a longtime Seth fan and belonged to Minneapolis Seth Group, and eventually got involved with the Linda Dahl's Seth Network International about 90 or 91. She ended up helping out at the conferences and then ended up speaking at them as well. She also was a presenter at Rick Stack's New York Seth Conferences, the Colorado and California Seth Conferences, and then had a couple of her own in New Haven that were called Seth Applied. She first visited Sterling Library in 1995 to see the archives. In a 1998 article in Reality Change magazine, she wrote about how she felt almost overwhelmed by the materials at first. And then it suddenly became extremely important for her that all the Seth material be computerized or digitized, as they say now, with the ability for searches and sorting. She kept returning to Sterling on her vacations, and then it became evident to her that the time she was spending at Yale's library was very important to her, and she was wanting to move there full time. By 1997, Mary decided that she could take an early retirement and just pack everything up and move to New Haven so she could spend full time at the library. The idea was daunting at first, but eventually the call was too strong for her to ignore. To overcome her doubts and fears about the big move, she decided to take a good look at her beliefs. And you can read about how she worked through all of this in that article that she wrote in Reality Change magazine. It's available for you to download as a PDF on the SRP website under the About link. Mary obviously overcame her fear of packing up and moving. She ditched her medical insurance. She left a very comfortable, well-paying job and a nice apartment, and just went for it. Just took a leap of faith and trusted that the universe would support her in her endeavor. And it certainly was. She spent more than 20 years doing research and doing very well. And she was very much loved by many, many people and will be missed for a long time. So what exactly was Mary researching? In the beginning, she had no predetermined product in mind. She believed it would unfold over time, and her goal became making the entire collection available to assist researchers and also for publication. There are quite a few things that are in the collection that are still unpublished. The library index of the boxes is not very detailed, and she wanted to make thorough accountings of the contents available for future researchers to help them locate items of interest. And in her words, "I am developing a tool to aid future researchers. This magically reflects my trust that this material will continue to grow in importance in our society." And she was right. She spent 20 years keying information onto her laptop, as photos and photocopies of items in the collection are not permitted. Much of the information is handwritten with many abbreviations, and so it was slow going for her. Jane and Rob had done a lot of writing in notebooks, dream notebooks, sci-time notebooks, pendulum notebooks, in addition to her personal journals. There were also personal letters, boxes of fan mail, unpublished sessions, manuscripts. Mary spent probably thousands of hours hand typing these for the computer. A major part of Mary's research was interviewing people that knew Jane and Rob in some capacity, whether they were neighbors or class attendees or relatives, friends. One of the people she interviewed was actually the dentist for Jane and Rob. And she lamented in one interview that I had heard her give that she had started too late in this research part of her project because a lot of the people that knew Jane and Rob had already passed away. But she spent a lot of time in Elmira, Sarah, and Saratoga Springs libraries, looking in old phone directories, looking through old newspaper archives, trying to find out where people were. This was back in the 90s, something, 95, 96, 97. So the internet wasn't really that great at that point for searching either. So she really had her work cut out for her. This is from her old Seth Applied website. It was sort of a casting call looking for people that she could interview. Currently, one of my main activities is finding and interviewing people who knew Jane and or Rob. I am actively seeking photographs, audio tapes, letters, cards, and paintings to add to the collection. Another part of my project includes recording anecdotes, impressions, and experiences of people who knew Jane and Rob, whether members of the ESP class, neighbors, friends, or visitors. So she did about 50 interviews. Some people declined. Some of them were on phone. Some of them were personal. And people did share recordings with her. Some people had tapes that they could share with her. And her one treasured find was Jane's cousin, George Pilot. He was the son of Marie's older sister, Gert. And he had several old family photos that he let Mary scan. And so I've got a couple of those I'd like to share with you, and also some other pictures that I got from other sources. So here you go. Here's a beautiful family portrait of Jane's father, Delmar Roberts, her mother, Marie, nee Berto, and Jane, who looks to be about 2 or 3 in this picture. They all look so happy and relaxed, and yet this was just around the time that Del left the family. Jane's maternal grandparents. Granddad was Joseph Berto, and he's holding his grandson, George Pilot Jr., who looks to be about 6 months old. Jane would be 7 here. Jane called him Little Daddy, maybe because he was on the shorter side. Joe died when Jane was 28. On the right is Jane with her grandmother, Minnie. Jane looks maybe a couple of years younger than in the other photo. Minnie was hit and killed by a car while walking to a neighborhood store to buy shredded wheat for Jane. You can read more about that in the early sessions 6. Here's a fairly recent photo of the house Jane grew up in at 92 Middle Avenue in Saratoga Springs. Jane and her mother lived in the right half of the duplex. Jane's room was upstairs, and Marie ended up living downstairs once her arthritis progressed so far she couldn't make it up the stairs anymore. Now we have a photo of St. Clement's Catholic School, which opened in 1918 and is still in operation today. The St. Clement's Church is next door. I thought it would be interesting to map Jane's walk to St. Clement's. The small white dot is Jane's house, and the red marker is the school. The happy face I added is the playground across the street from Jane's house, which is currently a Waldorf school. The neighborhood kids would climb over the chain link to get into the playground, which, according to Jane's childhood neighbor Agnes, still bears a bent top bar where the kids would sneak over. Jane's walk to St. Clement's was about a half mile, 10 minutes. That's, of course, if she didn't mess around on her way to school. This photo is of the 2 priests Jane mentioned in the books, Fathers Ryan and Traynor, from the church. They are both mentioned often in the materials, specifically in both the early and personal sessions. In her searching, Mary was also directed to some nuns who kept the archives from the orphanage that Jane had spent a couple of years in when she was young. Jane talks quite extensively about the orphanage in the Village Voice interviews that are available on the SRP website. The first part of the Village Voice interview is a free download. The rest of them you have to pay for them. Excuse me. And it's actually the second one where she talks mostly about the orphanage. So here are a couple of those photos. This is an old picture of St. Vincent's Female Orphan Asylum in Troy, New York, which is the orphanage that Jane spent a couple of years in when she was a child. These are 2 pictures of Jane, or as she was known then, Janie Roberts, at St. Vincent's when she was about 10 years old. These are from the orphanage archives. Mary also produced an amazing number of spreadsheets of every bit of information possible about Jane and Rob in the Seth materials. One of her biggest files is a list of all sessions that ever happened, whether they're published or unpublished. It includes, and they're all in chronological order. So there are ESP class sessions in there that are just by date, and then the regular sessions, which have dates and session numbers, and then personal sessions for individuals. It's all in there. A description of what the session's about, things like that. And you can actually download that on her website. It's been up there for probably years, I think. It's on the references page, and it says a list of all sessions or something like that. Other types of spreadsheets that Mary put together were notable dates in the Roberts and Butts lives, and that includes birthdays and anniversaries and events that happened. I just made this one available on the website a few months ago, and so if you go to the references page, you can download that. Inventories of info in the collection, which is the main thing that she was doing for researchers. All the addresses mentioned in the materials, all the names mentioned in the materials, pseudonyms used, that type of stuff, class attendees. And yet another part of her project was comparing the printed books with Rob's, either his original typed transcripts of sessions or the session tapes to those books. And she would go through them. Gosh, I don't know how she did this, but she would go through every one of the books and just mark any words that were changed, whether it was probably the publisher made some changes to the books. I know they said that Seth dictated things flawlessly when Jane was channeling him, and then I don't think Rob would have changed things on his own either. So, but those, there are 2 of those that you can download or look at also on the SRP website on the references page, and one of them is Nature of Personal Reality, and the other is Seth Speaks. And the changes are pretty minimal, so no big surprises for you there. So it's been just over a year now since I received the files from Mary, whether the physical ones in boxes and also the digital ones. And new treasures crop up on a daily basis. Mary once said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that her research was not a beeline, and that she would be working on one thing and all of a sudden she would get an idea and go, oh, that would be another great thing to do. And then she'd be off on a tangent, abandoning what she was working on at the moment and making notes as to what she wanted to follow as far as a new project. I can totally relate. I get pulled off what I'm doing all the time, and it's great. I love it. I love the spontaneity of it. One of the great things about working on this is I've had a couple of different people contact me, actually 3 now, that said, hey, you know, I just heard about what you're doing, and I have some letters from Jane, or I have this or that, and I was wondering if you would take those and hold on to them for me for safekeeping, because, you know, all these people that have gone to the original Seth ESP classes, a lot of them are in their later years, and some of them have already passed. And so people start thinking about these treasures that they have, and they want them to be safely kept. And although I'm no spring chicken, I'm still kicking around, and I do have a fireproof safe I put things in. So I've had some people send me letters and pictures, and like Paul Cunningham, this was actually really fun. This is one of the first things that came up. He's the one who wrote the paper, The Problem of Seth's Origin. And someone asked me one day that they read in one of the books something about a psychiatrist who had written a paper that he'd sent to Jane, and Jane was not too happy about it because he was questioning the origin of Seth, you know, the validity of Seth. And actually, it's Paul Cunningham. He's a very big Seth fan. He's a professor of psychology. And I emailed him to ask him if that's who they were referring to in the book. And he said, yes, he hadn't actually realized he was in the book until later on, when years later after the book came out, he read it and he realized that they were talking about him. And I asked him if he had his original version of that paper, because he's rewritten it so many times. I think the last one he updated just a few years ago. He kept changing it, adding to it. And so, yeah, he said, oh, yeah, I've got the letters. I've got letters I sent to Prentice Hall. I've got letters I sent to Jane. I've got a copy of the original paper that I sent to Jane and Rob. And so I got all of that from him, and I scanned it. I sent him scans back, which is what I do for everyone that sends me something. I scan it and then send the scanned files to them. And should they change their mind and decide they actually want their physical papers back, I'd be glad to give those back to them too. It's their possession as far as I'm concerned. So that was fun doing that with Paul. And the thing is, I think a lot of people don't really read through his book about the origin of Seth. They think that he's actually trying to say that Seth was not real and Jane was a phony or whatever. And that's just the opposite of the way he felt. The reason he wrote that paper was to get other psychologists and parapsychologists interested in the Seth materials, because he wanted to explore that. And he was trying to get probably grants and things like that to do the project, but it turned out to not be something other people were interested in. So that was the end of that. But that's one of my favorite parts about this, is getting to have contact with people that are also Seth readers and have original materials from them. See, what else? Oh, yeah, what did Mary ask me to do, actually? Not a whole lot. She didn't have a lot of time to explain to me exactly the extent of what her research involved. And she actually did this like the day she died. She wrote just a really brief note to me on her computer, which I found later when I got the files, just basically saying that she wanted her spreadsheets to be proofread by me and any corrections made if I find any errors, and get them in a form that Yale will take, and also to proofread her transcripts of all the interviews she had done. She had, in the later years, had some problems hearing, and some of the recordings are very hard to understand as well. It's like one of them she did in a restaurant, and there were a lot of noises in the background, dishes and people talking and laughing and things. And so I've been working on that. It's been very slow going. I've been able to fill in some blanks, like I was able to do with the Village Voice transcripts. And I'm just really, this is fantastic. I'm really enjoying this. I get to hear people that were friends and neighbors of Jane and Rob, and just talking about them as people. I've had as much of an interest in Jane, I think, as I have in Seth. I mean, the Seth materials are just amazing to me. But I also had an interest in Jane as a person because it was extraordinary what she did. And to have Seth come through in that whole combination of her and Seth working together to put this vast collection of information and books together, it's just, it's amazing to me. So once I get all of these things together for Yale, now they stopped accepting new submissions quite a while ago because there are some forms that still need to be signed by Laurel. But they did tell Mary that they would accept her research. And also Sue Watkins Mary had a bunch of her stuff, and so Yale had agreed to take Sue's things. And one of the document that needs to be signed by Laurel, I need to sign one myself when I submit Mary's research to them. And they also stopped accepting anything because of COVID. They were closed for quite some time, and then they got really far behind in their filing and accepting new documents. So the last they told me was July of this year they'll accept them. So that should give me enough time to finish up the interview transcripts. And actually, I don't have to get them in there by July. I just can't get them there before July. And so I'll take care of that for Mary. But I also plan on continuing to sift through all the materials I have and sharing what I can with the public. I realize, of course, that most of this stuff is copyrighted. And so I can't just put things out there without getting permission first. Laurel's been very gracious with giving me permission to put some of the things on Mary's website. And so I'll continue to work that way. And hopefully at some point I'll be able to put some of these interviews up also so people can listen to them. Some of them have been just amazingly enjoyable and entertaining. And that's the fun part about doing all of that. So I think that about wraps it up for me today. If there's something that you were curious about and I didn't cover it here, please feel free to contact me. My email address is deb@sethresearchproject.com, or you could go to the Seth Research Project website and click on the contact page. There's a form there, or you can click on an email link. And also, I keep a list of subscribers that are interested in getting notifications when I find something new. I actually have a news blog link on there, where every once in a while when I find something juicy, I put it out on a blog post, and then everybody that's on the email list gets a copy of it. So you can sign up for that to get notices. It's through MailChimp. If I won't share your email address with anyone, and if you decide you changed your mind or you're not interested, you don't like what you're getting, it's very easy to unsubscribe. No hassles there at all. Okay, well, I think that about covers it. I'm going to end this now with a very short video clip of Mary talking about why she did the Seth Research Project. Thanks for listening, and enjoy the video.
What would you like to say to people 200 years from now that are grateful for all the effort you put in? What would you like to tell them?
I would like to tell them that I had totally selfish motives, and I did it just for the fun of doing it. And I also think selfish is not a bad word, because we're always doing everything for ourselves.
Yeah, sure.
But that I hope that I picked the right things to do, and also that I think my future self, who is researching the papers right now, has been egging me on and giving me hints as to what they would like to see.
Yeah.
So,
That's
but
good.
yeah. But it's a project that I'm doing only because it's so much fun. And yes, I would like it to help people, but it's really because it's fun.
That's cool.
Thank you, Deb, for that wonderful presentation on the Seth Research Project. Let's now dive into our next adventure. And our next adventure is going to be super exciting because we're going to do something different, something new, something we didn't do last year. And that's going to include two groups, the Black Sheep Artists and the Black Sheep of the Universe. And both of them are on Facebook. And from these groups, we have all kinds of arts, Seth-inspired arts, right? So we're diving into the arts, into creativity, into tapping our potentials and creative expression through art. So this is super exciting. And we're going to see both art itself as well as commentary and dialogue about art from these artists. So it's going to be super exciting to go on this new adventure and explore the visual and the creative arts here at the Seth Conference. So after these dialogues and after some of these arts are displayed, and after a really lovely slideshow prepared by Jeff for all of us, we are going to have a live Q&A with Larry Rush, who is the founder of these groups. So if you have questions about the arts, about any particular information and adventure that we have shared with you, then please type it into the comment box in the YouTube section. We will cherry pick the questions and deliver them to Larry Rush. So it's going to be a super exciting adventure. Let's welcome really warmly the arts to our multidimensional Seth Conference stage.
Hello, it's my great pleasure to welcome a few members of Larry Rush's Black Sheep Universe group. I've just and here he is, the man himself. He's just popped in as we're beginning. How beautiful timing, Larry. You've got a beam of light as well coming across your face. That's lovely. So some of us have gathered together here to just talk about our experiences of the group and what it means to us and what we get from it and how it seems to be working and in a personal way. So I'd like to invite, who would I like to invite? Ravinder, who's speaking to us from far, far away. There is no distance now, is there, with Zoom? But Ravinder, you've been here in the group for a long time, haven't you? And I know I absolutely love your posts, always. And I always love to see you. You're my friend as well as a co-member of the group. And we've actually met as well 5, 6, quite a while ago now, isn't it? 6 years ago? Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we live very far apart on different parts of the world. So Ravinder, would you like to tell us something about your relationship with the group and how it is for you in your life?
I just want to say that I really obviously enjoy the group. I learned so much from everyone. And I think the active listening that we all have is so important, because sometimes we think we're listening and we're not really listening to the people in our daily life. And I really learn so much and understand so much better how we're interconnected through our shared experiences. So I think that has been such a great joy, apart from also enjoying the humor and the laughter, which is so important in life. And I just want to say, sharing stories, I think, starts with children, because I always worked with little children, and, you know, fairy tales and all of those kinds of stories, they teach. They even teach young children different lessons. And so for me, I've really enjoyed connecting with all the Black Sheep members here in this story group. And I love to listen and I love to share. So it's been wonderful that way.
And of course, the group itself, the Facebook group, which was, you know, it's the main part of the experience for a lot of people. The stories that you're referring to, Ravinda, is the storytelling group, isn't it? Where we tell each other stories live on Zoom once a month. But just generally the Facebook group and how that's been, because you've been in there for a number of years now, haven't you?
Yes, it's amazing. I can't even remember how many years, but it's been years. Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a family, you know, we have our own, you know, family, you know, husband, whatever, sister, brother. But you become a family again with those you connect with, even in a larger group, like the Larry's Black Sheep group. So even if I don't respond to everything, I do read a lot and take in a lot. I just I check in every day almost. So it's been great. And
of course, earlier on, Larry and I we're acknowledging that the kind of magnetism that brings people together into a synergy, in a synergistic way. Some of us feel, I don't know, very comfortable with each other in a sense of being already connected before we met, kind of thing that you often get with people. And I think there's a lot of that here in the group, isn't there? I think also that, you know, you can connect online, and, you know, I've been lucky enough to meet some of you, Ruth, Gloria as well. And whatever you felt online, it really is meaningful because you feel the same when you meet each other. It's even better, you know. Better, yeah. So I think that's, you know, I know if I meet any one of you, it'll be in person. I'll have that strong connection still. Yeah, and of course I met Larry and Les recently in London. It was just a joy. Yeah, so how about you, Gloria? How's the Facebook group been? And of course, as Ravinda was talking about the stories around the fireside group as well, which is something that arose from that.
Yeah, well, I really look forward to the Facebook group because I feel like there's a lot of intellectual challenging and learning of all the different writings of Seth and other people that bring different things in that are so interesting. And everybody has room to say what they need to say. And I think that's really important. But like Ravinda, for me, I feel connected because I feel like there is this group of like-minded individuals that are open-minded and like-minded and allow me to think and feel and say the things I believe in and listen and not judge. And I think that's a really important thing. And the stories I just find really enjoyable, partly because it's Zoom. So I feel like I'm getting to have this time with my friends. I almost feel like we should all have coffee and say cheers or whatever, cocoa by the fire. But the fact that we try to come up with an idea of what it is we want to share, each idea every time we meet is I think a really fun thing because it sparks memories sometimes that I had forgotten. Things that I had experienced and forgotten about and hadn't thought about in a long time. So it brings a lot of that kind of thing back to mind. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah. And this is what happens with the synergy of a group where the combination of each of the shared experiences seems to create more experience. More. Yeah. Yeah. absolutely. So Les, have you been in the Black Sheep group from the beginning, or?
No, for for about 4 years, I think. I met Larry because we were in other Seth groups. We met for coffee at the Black Sheep Coffee House. And he said, oh, just in conversation, you know, I run this group called Black Sheep of the Universe. I wonder if you're interested. I said, yeah. And so there it started from there. And I think shortly after I joined Black Sheep Artists also, where I post a lot of my artwork. The Universe group is very varied. I mean, varied personalities, varied posts. I've been posting a journal in the Black Sheep of the Universe group. Well, I say recently, since the beginning, for the last 2 years actually, since the beginning of the first lockdown. And it's not quite daily because I do the journal in note form daily, but I don't manage to type it up and post it. So, and the Fireside group, I think I've been in about 3 of those meetings, which I think one was on reincarnation, wasn't it? I remember that.
That was what started it off, wasn't it? People were asking for stories.
Yeah.
Of other lifetimes that you may have sort of deceived, and that was what set it off, because
I've met Ruth in person, and I've met Larry about 6 times at least. Sometimes by chance on the tube in London, shopping.
There's the magnetism again. It's like the whole of London, you know, millions of people.
Yeah, only about
have to
10
get on
million.
the same train. I love that.
Only about 10 million people in this little village.
Oh, that's really cool. And you share a lot of your dream stories as well, don't you, Les, in the group, as well as your art and your journal.
In the journal.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I've gained from Seth, really. It's encouraged my dream recall, creativity. I was creative before I read Seth, which is about 40 years ago. But it's reading Seth led me to trust my creativity more and trust my dream recall.
Because I joined the artist group very recently, and I just felt a sense of something I've been feeling recently anyway, which was that creative part of me, that arty part of me, has been very sort of low key for many years. And I just thought, oh yes, I'd like to just turn it up a notch, you know, it would be really lovely. And that space just feels like it's inviting me out, if you like, inviting my creativity out of me to just be feels like a very easy, playful space. And I feel the whole Black Sheep space, really, the main group and the artist group, there's this, I feel a lovely sense of a kind of naturalness of just being able to just be myself and be casual and be relaxed. And it's a kind space as well. It's a very sort of respectful and kind space, but it's sort of easy. I think that there's a feeling for me that it's easy. There's a kind of ease between us, which I really like very much, I must say. So yeah, so you've been in touch with the Seth material for 40 years, Les, around about.
Yeah, more to the nearest decade.
Wow.
nearly 40 years, yeah.
You look well on it, I must say.
Thanks.
I think, Leah, you've also been connected with the Seth material for quite a while, haven't you, as well?
Oh my goodness, yes. I was 19 when I first picked up a
just the other day.
Seth Speaks, and I'm 67 now, and I'm a diehard Sethie, and I belong to several Seth groups. Some are devoted to Seth only.
Yep.
But I really enjoy Black Sheep because there are other ways of approaching the same material.
Mm.
the same ideas, the same concepts. And though I do have to translate sometimes, say, okay, what they're saying over here sounds like this over here. And sometimes I need clarification. But basically, we're coming from the same ideas, same concepts. We create our own reality. And that is a blessing. I really enjoy chatting with everybody there. And what I really like about the fireside stories is it started out, I believe with the reincarnation. And we've started coming up with a theme each month, and each theme revolves around how do we use our inner senses? How are they expressed in our life? And we've talked about all kinds of things, telepathy and clairvoyance and seeing ghosts and et cetera, et cetera. And those are just great fun. And it's so much fun to hear everybody else's stories and to feel that connection. You know, it's one thing to type to everybody on the various threads that are in the groups. It's another to see everybody on Zoom and to hear their voice, get their personality, which doesn't always come across as well in written word.
Yes.
But it would be even better in person. And I'm looking forward to seeing some of you this year in person.
Yes.
And it's very refreshing to have that kind of Zoom connection, because even though it is Zoom and we're not in person, we still hold this psychic link.
Yes.
And we all feel each other's energies, and we all share our stories, and it's just marvelous. I love the group. And I've missed a few times, but mostly I try to be there and listen to everybody's stories and share what I can of mine if I have anything to share. But it's literally the focus on developing and manifesting our inner senses. And that is important to me anyway. And so I've been with the group. I don't know when I joined. It's been a while. But it's been a while. Yeah. I don't remember when I joined. But I'm so glad I'm a part of it. And I'm not going away anytime soon.
Yeah, I also love the mix as well. I also really enjoy people posting some of the Seth quotes, because as someone who hasn't read all the books, only one or two of them, I love having the nuggets shared with me. Somebody else has taken the trouble to pick out some good bits, and so I really enjoy that, I have to say. Yeah, that's lovely. Yeah, okay, so thank you, Larry, for this wonderful intention that you began with. And I think just, the stories grew out of this moment where it just it felt like we needed to be together and share rather than just type. So, and I mean, that's another dimension that we've managed to explore, and it's been great, but lovely for me as well to just open the space, and then all these wonderful interesting people pop in and just share this kind of treasure. Stories are always treasure, really. They're always, and they're living things, so that they grow and they change and they bring more forth from each other and within ourselves as well. So it's been a joy to do that. So the artist group, which I've recently joined, sprung from the Black Sheep group and the Facebook group as a place where we could just go mad with our art. I mean, like I say, I've only recently joined, but I'm like, well, hey, let's share, and it's absolutely lovely. It's really opened up something nice for me, potentially. I'm looking forward to going, and that perhaps it will inspire me to produce more as well. But I'd like to just sort of introduce the space in which the art group is going to show a bit more and discuss a little bit more about what you're doing. And I know some of the very valued members of the art group aren't actually physically joining a Zoom call with us, but they have. I know, Leah, you've got some some material that you're going to share with the conference. And so what I'm going to do is just bring this space to a kind of gentle close as we move into the art group space and share in more depth what's happening there, because there's some lovely stuff happening in the art group. So yeah, so thanks everyone for your contributions right now, and we'll just seamlessly move into our art group area. Bear with us for a moment.
Hi, back to me. I'm Leah Cox, and I'm a member of Black Sheep Artists. And of course, you know that art comes in many, many different manifestations. And in this group, we have photography, we have writing, we have sculpture, we have quilting, we have poetry, and of course, painting and drawing. We have a little bit of everything, and all artists are welcome. If you would like to come and see us, I would think it would be lovely to have you so you could showcase what you do artistically. Today, we're going to talk to 4 of the artists who are part of the group. We're going to start with Les, and he's going to show some of his drawings, and he's got some wonderful, colorful ones and some black and whites. You want to talk to us about that and give us a little description of what your work is based on and where it comes from?
Sure. These are a series of, I've probably done dozens, maybe 100 of these. That's black and white or black and grey. I sort of do the drawing and then fill in the colours. The drawing is easy for me. It's like doodling. I don't think about it. So it's like channeling. I look on it as something similar to channeling. There's another one. That's ultramarine blue. The light's a bit iffy, so it's not really showing the blue very well. Let me just flick through this book. There we got the time-consuming part is the colouring. It's partly a question of finding the right colours that go together, and partly just being neat and filling every.
What do you think you're channeling here?
Well, they're not. They look abstract, but to me, they're not quite abstract.
What do they look like?
In some of them, I sense a presence, and to me, they're like bringing something from inner reality into physical waking reality. I think Seth talked about this, about this process of doing that. Blues are our favourite colours, really, and it's a healing colour, says Seth. So we got it on good authority. Kind of like that. It's simple. Okay.
Yeah, they are abstract, but they do evoke something within us.
Some of them I see figures. This one, for example, I see like Harlequin type figures or suggestions of figures. That's a cartoon. That's another.
Yeah. Yes, you also do cartoons.
Cartoons. I've got not hundreds of drawing. I've got thousands. That's kind of nice. The colours are not quite true there. Not true. No, never mind.
Sort of reminds me of Aboriginal art. You know, there's lots of parallels there. You know, have you ever had a sense that you might have been out in Australia in some other life?
Not specifically, but I know what you mean, and there's good point. I'll think about that. There's something primeval about someone. quite evocative. I'll just show one more series, Residents of the Mind. This is an expression, quite an evocative one, I think, that Seth uses. And I've done hundreds of drawings like this, faces. I start with a photo of a real person, usually a photo, sometimes famous people, sometimes models, sometimes unknown people. But the face changes and deliberately as I'm drawing it. Again, it's a kind of channeling process. So I feel like I'm portraying residents of the mind, to use Seth's term when he was talking to Rob. But he said to Rob that Rob portrays residents of the mind, and they're not people you would meet walking down the street, but they're every bit as real, but they're inner personages. Quite often people say, "Oh, that looks familiar, that face." And to me too, I think, "Oh, I know. We've ever seen that face before." Showbiz face there.
They're quite expressive.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm just concentrating on one. Okay, that's a kind of to me, an American Indian looking face. Often another characteristic, they're often quite androgynous. And I don't set out to make them androgynous, but to me, I'm not quite sure whether it's a man or a woman, but it's the entity has characteristics which are both male and female. I suppose they're another series, colourful. So I do colour sometimes.
Picasso modified.
Yeah, another resident of the mind. I think they often have a kind of a knowing look or a far away look. Just getting towards the end of the book, which is the beginning of the book, really. A kindly looking face.
Can I ask a question, Les?
Yeah, sure.
Some of your most inspirational drawings to me are the ones which I know you do on the tube and on the buses.
Oh, so, yeah.
You know, they're very quick, but they tell such a story, you know, the person's character, just with a few lines, you know, from your drawings, you get the essence of the person, you know.
These are fairly kind of they're almost line drawings, these are, but I know what you mean, Larry. That series of drawings I did about 5 or 6 years ago, drawings on the tube and buses when people didn't wear masks. And but it was they demanded a lot of concentration, because you've got just sometimes maybe a few minutes, 5 minutes between one stop and another. The train is moving or the bus is moving, even more so now because they've got speed humps to negotiate, and the people are moving, the people get up and get off. Sometimes I do composite drawing, so I'll start drawing one person, that person gets up and leaves, somebody else sits in the place, I continue drawing, so it's a composite person.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you, Les. I appreciate you sharing your artwork with us. And now we're going to go to Gloria, and she's going to talk to us about her artwork.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing artwork for a long time, and this series that I did, I have just a few pictures of them, were a time when I was communing or meditating, communing with people who were on the other side, people I was close to. And so I was intuitively expressing what I felt I was hearing from these people. So for me, these were representations of them. And I did, this is a small one of a friend of mine who passed away. And I did one of my late husband who had died back in the 80s. And as I look at them now, so many years later, because this was back in 2015 that I did this series. Actually, this one here is of my father, who died in the early 90s. And I look at them now and it really does feel like them. This one was at the end, after I had done people that I was, that were gone. This was one that I did when I was meditating about my son, who lived in California when I lived in Maine. And he had been there for a very long time and we hadn't communicated for a while. And this one was a really, it had a different feeling to me, because it was like we did telepathically communicate. And so for me, this was my representation of that meditation. I did it as I was meditating and I really loved it. And the majority of the work I do is abstract work, and it is almost all done intuitively. I wouldn't say that I was inspired specifically by Seth, but I would say I was inspired by the ideas that he talks about. I mean, those ideas that we create our own reality, that you know, there are other lives, we go on to multiple parallel lives, and all those things all fit into my own belief systems about the world that I'm here right now in. So of course they are going to feed what I do for art, as well as many other things, I'm sure, many other influences that I have. But you know, I'm happy that they're there, and I haven't actually made too much work for a few years, and I've just recently started making work again. So I'm really glad that the group is there, because I can start to share it there again. So, and I thank you all for being there. It's such a good feeling. I mean, I think that every artist wants a certain amount of criticism. It's important that not everybody says, "Oh, I love your work." You know, everybody, you know, when that's what my mother always said. She loved everything I ever did. And sometimes you need to have a little criticism, but it is nice to know that you can bring your work and be honored for making the work. And have honest communication about why you made it and how you made it, without having to you don't have to share it, but you're welcome to share it, and it's done in such a non-judgmental way. And in the art world, which is a very critical place, but sometimes not constructively critical, and so there's that difference. And so having a group like this has really been a blessing.
Yeah, it's a safe place to upload your work.
A safe place, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you, Gloria.
You're welcome.
And Ruth, what would you like to share?
Well, ever since I was a child, I've drawn and painted, but through the course of my life, very rarely actually. And so I've come to it just now and again. I've done a few little watercolors of nature and landscapes and so on over the years on postcards, just a minimum thing really. But then a few years ago, I met someone who showed me a way of drawing using the mandala format. And I found it to be very releasing for one's inhibitions, if you like, because the format is basically a circle with radials, with circles and radials. And she suggested start in the middle with the ink, like a doodle, and then do the colors afterwards, but just go with what you feel and not think about it too much, and don't evaluate it as you go along. So it's like a doodle. But the thing is that those are guidelines, and the guidelines are there to be completely broken, in my sense, as somebody who's like, it's the freedom. But somehow the guidelines that you can you can step over and step out of, somehow create a space where it feels very free for me to just let go, in a sense. And I approach it in a playful way. So I'm just kind of fiddling about. So this is something that I did recently. And I love putting a bit of gold and silver on as well, because the child in me loves to play. And the thing that I love about these is that it's almost like a kaleidoscope, because of the way that it works with the radials, the sense of repeating patterns. You somehow create something that's more than you thought it was when you were doing it. So when I step back at the end and look at this, for instance, I have a kind of wonderment at what, if you see the sort of little details around the edge, are almost Egyptian, and the zigzag lines, which I just thought, I'll just do some zigzag lines, and then I coloured them in the way I felt like colouring them in, and they sort of become something more, something else, and I really enjoy looking at them afterwards. So here is some from over the years. This is quite a playful one that I did when I was showing a few other people how to do mandalas, and I was just being playful. If you see, there's some pink trucks and they're kind of birds. So the drawing skills I love this kind of sense that I'm not showing off drawing skills, I'm just playing. I really like that about the mandalas. And then sometimes I just get, oh, yummy colour, And I've found all these, I do them mostly with felt tip pens. I found these wonderful graphic pens where you can get this smooth colour without any sort of pen lines in it. One of those things, I think I remembered this when I saw some of your wiggly line drawings, Les, and I felt like I wanted to go and find it. So I really got into this sort of,
wow.
Because it had a kind of geometric form, and then I did all these wiggly lines, and then I found these colours that were just a slightly paler version of the colour next to it, so that when it was inside those wiggles, it was that slightly paler version. So I'd got that kind of sense of this wild wiggle, sort of, changing something that was apparently just a sort of quite geometric. I really love that one. And then, so just examples of this playful mandala thing. This is a elves and flowers and stars and rainbows kind of one. So that's a kind of, kind of like adolescent sort of little girl kind of thing. I don't know what. This is after going on a plant medicine journey. This one, I got really obsessed as well with, I'll hold it still because it's actually small. There's a lot of small squiggles. This is a few years ago now. Yeah, that was after the plant medicine. And you can see how the mandala format, of circles and radials, you'd hardly know it was there, because there are actually four major squiggles, funnily enough, but you can just go anywhere you like with it. So that's the thing I love about mandalas. And I haven't got much to show here, but Gloria was suggesting that I show something that I shared when I first came into the group, which was that I'd heard that you could just sort of close your eyes and try and do a self-portrait with your eyes closed. So this is a series of drawings I did in quite a short session, which ended up with, if you ever found yourself alone in the house laughing out loud. So I love that. So this is the playfulness of so the first one, I tried to draw my face, and then when I looked at it, I thought, blimey, this looks like somebody contemplating death by hanging, And it was actually, I'd done an outline and then filled in the bits. It's so interesting what it turns into. It's like a whole nother story. And I carried on. And so this was the next one, this one. Who the heck is that? Wow. It was like, ooh. And then this one. Sort of sweet, strange.
These are really great exercises to free you up. They're wonderful.
So then I put those through, and then I decided I was going to try and do eyes closed and one line only. You know, you just can't, you don't take your pen off the paper and you try and do the whole thing in one line. So the first one of those that I'd managed to do was this. Yes, I discovered that it's very difficult to do two eyes when you're only doing one line, so I just settled for one. And then the next one, this is the one that really set me off laughing out loud.
Good.
That is fun. I love that one.
Me. So there you go, and I feel this. I mean, I can't really represent these, but this is something I did a while ago, but I'd love to share, which I haven't actually posted on the group yet. But this was me devising a cartoon, and of course it's backwards on here, so you can't read it. But it says something like, "It says you should have learned to let go of that inner critic by now." So I invented this kind of scenario, which is kind of a bit of a self-portrait with this hectoring aspect of the ego, whatever it is. And there's another one here where this sort of rather androgynous hectoring being is saying, who is called Merg, by the way, is saying, "You can't call this a drawing, it's a mess." And this figure here, which is a kind of loosely representing of myself, is saying, "Please keep your hand still." Because as you can see, I had a bit of difficulty drawing Merck's pointing finger. That's a kind of, this is the playfulness that I enjoy, because it's like with music, isn't it? We're playing when we're getting creative, and I love that aspect of it, and I love that feeling of the group, because that I've just come into recently, because it feels like a really safe space to just put in stuff that I just did. You know, doesn't have to be produced and evaluated and special. You can just put, "Oh, I did this. Hello, I'd like to share it." But of course, one of the things that I do share a lot is photographs, which I haven't got to show here. And I love photographing the natural world, and I love sharing this incredible joy and beauty that I feel when I experience the natural world. And that's something I just share photos that I take with my phone. And I really love sharing that, because when people respond and I know that they've enjoyed it, then I feel as though the joy got sort of, you know, the joy was spread. It wasn't just my own private experience, but I was able to kind of bring it. And I think that a lot of that is, you know, we make art for ourselves, but it's also lovely to share it.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ruth. Appreciate it. That was great. Now I've got, I'm going to show you a couple of paintings of mine. I'm a landscape painter, and I live in Flagstaff, Arizona, which is at the foot of a dormant, hopefully, volcano. But there are two huge coordinate points in this area, and the San Francisco peaks, which are actually the what you see from the old volcano, is sacred ground for so many tribes in the area. I think every tribe in the area, quite frankly. And I paint from there, and I also paint Monument Valley, which also has a huge coordinate point. So I'm going to share with you just a couple of paintings that I've done. This one is from the San Francisco peaks, the aspens at autumn, and I stood under the tree and took a photo and painted from it.
Wow.
Love it. And turned out pretty well. It was a lot of hard work, but this is actually a photo from southern Utah. This is at the Wave. Some of you might remember it. The colors are really like that. I'm not exaggerating. And there's this incredible, amazing, swirling colors up at the Wave, which I like a lot, clearly. And this is a slightly surreal painting I did. Is much larger and I couldn't fit it here. So this is an iPad photo of it. And this is Monument Valley, huge coordinate point. And there's a little glare there, sorry about that. But you can see that I added a super wolf full moon. So my brother said, that's too big. And I said, no, it's a super duper full wolf moon. But there's no, I mean, there's a lot of that you won't see out there, but the colors are true. The sky is true. The incredible storms that blow through are true. There's just a few other things that I put in that experience, my love of storms, my love of the Monument Valley area, and the incredible energy that flows through this area. That is also a very sacred area to every tribe who lives here. And we try to keep it that way. And that is what I do. But there's something else I do. I do what you call saturated beading. It's a fiber art. And we do have some fiber artists in the art group. When I started this, I called it Moment Point. And it began as a spiral. And it curled out from one spot. And those are all beads, hand sewn by me.
Beautiful.
Took me 7 years. But when I posted the photo online, this is how I posted it.
Yeah.
And others saw what I never saw, which is there's some dragon or horse or some mythical being. I never saw that. That's not, I saw it from Moment Point. But I'll take either one, either interpretation. I'm not picky. But that is, I'm working on another one, which has taken me a long. Procrastination has a great deal to do with it. And working on another beading. It's not saturation beading.
There's so much in that beading. It's something, you know, a person could meditate with that for days, weeks, and see more and more in that. It's beautiful.
I haven't figured out how to frame it. One of these years I'll do that. But it is very meditative to do it. And I love doing them. And it didn't have to take me 7 years, but it did probably no more than 2 if I'd stuck with it every day. But you know how that goes. So I have one other artist I want to talk to you about. And that is, who is not here. And that is Constance Ten Hawks. And Constance is an amazing painter. She's abstract. I'm going to show you one of her paintings.
Yes.
And another. But she also does these paintings that are 3-dimensional. And what that, I mean, she layers the paintings. And to her, they represent framework 1 and framework 2. And all the multi-dimensional outlets that we have in creation. And if there's a way that I can get more artwork of hers up, I really hope I can, because she is tremendous, just a tremendous artist. And I think you would greatly enjoy her work.
Well, hopefully something that will have happened by the time people see this, and they'll be able to access some more of Constance's work.
I'm hoping we can upload quite a bit, really. So that is it from our artists. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to add?
There are quite a few other artists.
Oh, yes. Oh, my goodness.
The thing is, quite a few of them are not really Seth readers, I guess, I suppose.
Yeah, that's true. And they're also a little shy.
You think? Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, Black Sheep artists, like Black Sheep, is open to everybody. And not everybody is a Seth reader, but they are all inspired by intuitive forces that are being created out, manifested out. And again, it's a safe place to show your artwork if you'd like to, and come join us. I hope you will. It's not a public group, it's private. So, but I'm sure Larry will let you in if you ask real nicely. So thank you for giving us your time, and I hope we've intrigued you.
Hello everyone, I'm Tina Collins from Queensland, Australia, born and bred in Cape Town, South Africa. I've done a collage representing our current world in challenging times and the probability being born that we ignite the process of honouring our true inner selves, both individually and collectively. We are also witnessing a fluctuation of weather patterns due to social instability. Seth describes in The Nature of Personal Reality, Chapter 18, how our emotions have a great effect upon the weather and how natural catastrophes serve as creative destruction in an attempt to unite people and communities. Although we are experiencing various situations of conflict and chaos, one can sense a rise in consciousness taking place across the globe. In Seth Speaks, Session 587, the concepts of the God without and the God within are discussed, and the desire mankind had to study the process of his own consciousness. It seems we are entering into the God within cycle again. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to be part of the conference and showcasing our artwork.
Hello, my name is Diana Bray. I live in Joplin, Missouri. I'm a retired mental health counselor and an artist. I do both abstract and realistic paintings, and I'm going to show you some of the abstracts today that have to do with the Seth concepts. The one you're looking at now is called The Big Turnaround, and I painted it about 2 weeks following a major tornado that came through the southern end of Joplin in 2011. And when I was doing this, what I was doing was just playing with the elements to make a collage, putting them in an interesting pattern, and just kind of going almost into a trance state, which is what I typically do as I'm just enjoying the process and letting it happen as it feels natural to me to do, and then applying some paint after I get things glued down. And then I step back and see what it's about. And so I was very surprised to see that this was about that tornado, because I had not been consciously thinking about that at all. So I did go ahead and add a few details. It just made it a little bit more explicit. But anyway, that got me to thinking about how this process can work to bring out what's maybe in the back of our minds. So the next piece is called Multiple Realities 358. And this one I did in the same manner. I was playing with the elements. I've got some very fine copper screen here that's folded up. I've got ceramics and plastic and wood. I've got an earring here, one of my favorite earrings used to be. And then I saw that I have this shaman here, and then there's a smaller shaman up above. To me, the shaman represents the person in us that is creating our reality with our intentions and thoughts and emotions and so on, expectations. So anyway, I just played with this, and I was well into it before I saw that I had the shaman there. And so then I just added a few details to, again, make it a little bit more distinct, make it easier for someone else to see it. And so Multiple Realities 358. I've got a 3, 5, and an 8 in there. I was working with numerology at the time, and a couple of other significant numbers. This piece I did very intentionally. It's called Our Inner Shaman. And I had been to Kansas City and picked up a couple of these clay faces, and thought that would be good to use in a collage representing creating our reality specifically. So I've got some leather there. Leather's a lot of fun to paint on. It's very smooth. I've got some metal and some plastic, some shell. This person is actually creating that horse up there. That's one of my favorite paintings. This one is called Lucid Dreaming. It's got the other phase. It's got some wooden elements in it, ceramic and wire. There's a platter that I made in a Intro to Ceramics class, and that little donkey. Sometimes there are symbols in my paintings that I don't really know what they relate to, but maybe I'll eventually figure them out, or someone else will find them relevant. Lucid dreaming. So this painting I also did very intentionally, and it's called Entity Explorations, about simultaneous time. Just the way I was thinking of it at the time. The next one is called Inner Selves Interacting. We're all more intuitive than we know. Again, here I was just playing with these different elements, these black pieces of rubber and plastic, etc., and some other elements of metal and so on. And pretty soon I saw that figure was developing, that's pretty distinct, and some other characters showing up too that could be other consciousnesses interacting. So I'll zoom in on that a little bit so you can get a better look at some of the detail of it. Of course, I added an element of love as well. That horse face up there was a surprise to me. Another white horse. I don't know anything about what's going on with that. So this one was a piece of fabric that I thought was interesting. It had some patterns on it, and I started painting on it. It's called, this one's called Nature Song. You see there's a bird in the middle. That just took shape by itself. And there's some other possible animals, other consciousnesses that are starting to emerge. Maybe even the shaman, one or two of those. Got some metal. These are a lot of fun to do. The next one is called Summer Night Along the River. And in this case, I was just playing around with the surface. I put some water on it, and then I added some paint, and I really liked the effects I was getting. Once it started looking like maybe it was a river at night, I went ahead and added the mysterious elements. So what I'm thinking in terms of is the consciousness of everything, the plants and animals, the water, all interacting and creating their magic. The wildness that happens out there on a summer night along the river. And this one is called The Spirit in All of Us. The Spirit in All Things, I'm sorry. Here I was just playing with a sense of lightness and energy, and I had this color that represented the sky to me, and I had attached a couple of pieces of paper onto the canvas and just kind of played around with a sense of lightness and airiness, and this is what occurred. The Spirit in All Things. And then this final piece. Just a painting, not a collage. Creating a Loving Universe is the title. Although I've been thinking about changing it to Creating a Loving World, considering all the things that have been going on lately. Again, there's symbolism that I don't know anything about the meaning of it. I just do what it feels like I should put on there. And that's all I have. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to seeing what other people are creating.
So Larry, hello. It's really good to see you as always. I'm a member. I just introduced myself quickly.
Good to see you as well, Ruth.
Thank you, Larry. I just introduced myself. I'm a member of Larry's Black Sheep of the Universe Facebook group, and I've also recently joined the other group, which is the artist group, Black Sheep Artists. So I just, and this is Larry. Larry is, how would you describe yourself, Larry?
An East Ender, West Ham supporter, and I like me jelly deals and pie and mash.
Larry is a true East End Londoner. He's got that wonderful Cockney accent, which we hope you people from across the pond can understand. And if you can't, well, just concentrate, okay? So, Larry, I'd like to ask you, and we're here to talk about the Black Sheep of the Universe groups. But first of all, I'd really love to know about your relationship with the Seth teachings and how you came to it and what it did, you know, what happened with you.
Yeah, I was always sort of into Taoism, thought I'd, you know, read all of the Indian spiritual stuff there was to read, looked at all of these metaphysical teachers. And then one day in work, it was actually, you know, as a woman who used to be a holistic teacher, you know, she did a lot of therapy stuff, you know, very, very nice lady. We used to talk spiritual, metaphysical stuff in our lunch breaks, etc. And we got into Anita Morjani. She introduced me to Anita. She said, "Have you heard this?" I think it was when Anita had just had a out-of-body experience. She'd written the book, and she said, "Have you heard of Anita Morjani?" I said, "No," you know, because I never used to search for stuff like that. You know, I thought I'd got everything I needed. So she said, "Oh, yeah, this Anita Morjani." So I looked into that, and I said, "Oh, yeah, that's brilliant." You know, bought the book. And then I'm not sure how long after that it was, but she said, have you heard of this Seth? I said, "No, never heard of him." This must have been about 20 years ago. And she brought in her book, you know, for me to read. And I just picked it up, could not put it down, absolutely couldn't put it down. Read through it within, I don't know, days, a week, sent off my own copy, let her have hers back. And that's when the Seth thing started, you know. So here's me, you know, at 50 odd years of age, thinking I know it all and, you know where to go for sources of information, you know, inside and out. And all of a sudden I'm introduced to this guy called Seth, who's no longer here. But so that was the start of the journey. And then all these years later, you know, managed to read all of the books, the Seth material books, plus associated ones. And that's where the journey started. And it's still continuing, really. But not to rely on him as the source of information, but just to validate, you know, what you think internally and validate the experiences you've had in your life, but you didn't really know why you were having some of them. You know, from an early age, you know, not being able to explain it, just knowing that you've had these weird experiences and other stuff I'd read sort of touched on it, but never really explained it. So for me, picking up the Seth books was saying, "Oh my God, now I get it." For the first time, I get the whole thing and what lies behind it. So that's the way I found it anyway. And luckily, when I started to form the groups, you know, there were people from the Seth groups out there. I thought, oh, that would be a nice mix with people who I know, like yourself, Ruth, from other groups. You know, we had some fantastic groups going. And so it's like a fusion of both, really. And I think that seems to work well, rather than just being a Seth group, you know, where we all know the same stuff. So I don't think we ask questions of each other. When you read the same stuff, there's no questions to ask because you've all read it. But when you have a mix of people who've got other beliefs and, you know, have read other stuff, then that's interesting because then those people can ask questions, we can ask questions, and that's how you broaden your mind, isn't it? And, yeah, your beliefs.
Yeah, Larry, absolutely. And of course, I'm not a deep student of Seth, but I've been studying metaphysics for many years. And so when I've come across the Seth material, it has matched kind of what I already felt I'd discovered in many ways as well, and also enhanced. And so I haven't read all the Seth books at all, but the ones I have, I've gone, yeah, you know, this is good material. So it's lovely to be here. And don't you I must say that over the years, I've had quite a few experiences where there's a kind of magnetism that goes on in the ether, or whatever words don't really describe this properly, that just brings people together into kinds of certain groupings and meetings. And I know some of us have met in person, and that's always seems to have been kind of precious, you know, because like you were saying, you had a lot of stuff unexplained in your life. So you'd come through many years. And I think this is something that's probably reflected in the experience of many people on this path, if you like, that we've got ourselves into, exploring metaphysics, which for me is a great adventure. And the pursuit of freedom, you know. But I mean, just there are lots of people who've had many experiences that they were very much alone with, and that they couldn't really explain. People who are very sensitive, who are open, who didn't kind of shut down at the age of 4 and lose all their perceptions. But you know, and I've been in quite a few situations where people have come together and they've gone, oh, it's so wonderful to meet people who just make sense of all this weird stuff I've experienced all my life. Sounds like that happened to you to quite a degree, didn't it?
Yeah, and I think not just from the Seth material, but this thing about people coming together, you know, I think the one thing that I've learned from Seth is no coincidences. You hear me say it all the time, and that's, you know, something that just has total meaning to me now. There's no coincidences. Nothing happens that we don't want to happen. So the coming together of people in the groups, to me, isn't an accident. You know, people are not just flicking through us. Oh, let's have a look at that group. You know, there's like you said, a magnetism, maybe shared other lives, you know. I won't say previous lives because they don't happen previously. It's all simultaneous. So for me, and certainly the core of the group, you know, the ones that interact a lot, and we know who we are, you know, there's always a core of people who are more active than others. And I think for those people, to me, I feel like the ones we've been in other groups with before this group, to me, it's like we've known each other forever, you know, and formed friendships, which a lot of people say you can't form friendships online. It's just, you know, it's a false friendship, but that doesn't apply for me.
Yeah. Doesn't apply for me either. I've made some, not just this one, but many, and yeah, but there's something else here as well, and that's the intent, because there was an intent behind the group's formation, and that came from your perception, your dream, if you like, your dream of what you would love to see to happen.
Yeah, and part of it was, you know, the two groups that we shared, you know, and I won't mention them, but we had two groups. One came out of another. You could call it an experiment.
Yeah.
And that was an experiment in human relations and, you know, consciousness, really. And I think that was a success, but maybe it didn't go on to become what it could have. But for me, that was a real loss. That group, that core of people in that group was so spiritual, so knowledgeable. I didn't want to lose it. So part of my inspiration for starting the Black Sheep universe was to try and keep those people, or give them people a space.
Yeah.
You know, I always go back to
stay.
This was in my mind when I formed the group. You remember that Kevin Costner film? It was about the baseball stadium, and I mean, build it and they will come.
Yes.
Build it and they will come. And that was in my head. I thought, I'm set the thing up, and if it happens, it will happen. If it doesn't happen, and it happened, and it's still happening 5 years later, so something must be right, and the people in it must be right. Not everyone, because people come and go, as you've seen recently.
Yeah, absolutely.
But for the core of people, and they can come and go. Lots of friends from those previous groups come and go, dip in. I think you've been in a few times yourself now, which is great. You know, there's no compunction to stay, but hopefully the love and the affection and that sharing of ideas, most people come back 2 or 3 times and then maybe stay, go, I don't know. Doesn't matter, really.
But we love that kind of casual flexibility, but at the same time there's a loving sense of loving kindness in this group, which is something I absolutely love. And yeah, I mean, I haven't been in since the beginning. I popped in and out once, and then I came back, and I'm here now, and I'm enjoying it very much. And I love being connected. And of course, you and I met in person recently as well with Les, which was a lovely experience for me. I really enjoyed meeting you guys.
I think it feels very supportive. I think that's the thing.
Yeah,
that jumps out to me. You know, people all have their life traumas, you know, and there's not a day goes by when someone doesn't experience some sort of pain, or, you know, whether it's the grief of loss or just things that happen in your life. And, you know, a lot of people reach out in our group and they ask for, you know, whether it's prayers or thoughts, you know, positive vibes, whatever you call it, whatever works for you. And a lot of people do that. And I think there seems to be a generosity of spirit in there, and it seems to help a lot of people. You know, now you can't quantify that, but if that's what people feel when they reach out and they ask for that support, if they feel there's, you know, a dozen people, 20 people coming back, you know, same day saying, yeah, I'm sending you my positive energy.
Yeah, and just holding them. Yeah. And of course, the other thing is that when we've studied these matters, when we do have a challenging life experience, it's really good to be able to share that personal stuff with people who have also studied these matters to a degree and have that perspective that's more on a vibe with the way we perceive things in our where we are, because as we study these matters, as we study the metaphysics, we do start to kind of go into a place where a lot of people don't quite get what we're on about as well. So it's good to be with people who do. It really is. So thank you, Larry. That's absolutely, you know, thank you for starting the groups, and thank you for being here now, because it's good to know you. And what I thought, what we've said we'd do, isn't it, is that we said we'd like to talk a little bit more about the group, with some members of the group who are going to be joining shortly. So what I thought we'd do now is just mention briefly that, yeah, they're going to join us shortly, and we can just
yeah. And I'd like to, you know, can I say thank you to you, Ruth, because obviously, you know, there's daily posts in the group, anything goes really, there's very few rules. But one of the things you brought to the group recently, which is, you know, greatly respected and admired, is this stories around the fireside. You know, this was your idea, and this is a way of people meeting. And I don't want to steal your thunder on it. You created it, but it's been a wonderful space within a wonderful space where we can share those spiritual ideas and pursue them. You know, like picking a topic. What topic do you want? You know, and you chuck that out there, and someone will say, out of body experiences. And then you listen to people's out-of-body experiences. And some people who have never really been that spiritual say, well, yeah, that happened to me, you know.
Yeah.
And I never put a name to it. I could never, and they do.
And of course, this began when there was a thread and somebody was saying, you know, who has, you know, awarenesses of their other lifetime experiences. And I just thought, I can't type this onto a little screen. It just needs to be people sitting around the fire sharing stories. And that was where the idea came. And having run Zoom meetings lots in my own work and my own trainings and so on, I just thought, well, I could just easily set this up. So it's a once a month thing, isn't it? And the thing that's so beautiful about sharing a space is that, you know, when people come together, as we all know, what is created by the synergy of a group is always greater. And when people share their stories and they're really listened to and heard and held, something more comes through, more comes through, quite often either from within them and also from other people's perception. There's a kind of rising together thing that happens, and there's a lovely warmth and connection amongst the groups as well. And we've got this lovely casual attitude, haven't we? We're not too sort of formal. We just do it how we do it. So anyway, let's just kind of pause for a moment as we get the group in, and then we can just have a chat. We can have a chat with them about their experiences and also about the artist group as well.
Yeah, sure. Can I just have one other tribute before we do that, Ruth, very quickly? We talk about this synergy and almost like the glue. I regard it as like the glue that holds the group together, you know, it's that core of people. But one of the other people who adds enormous energy to the group is Rani. You know, this birthday, you know, celebrating everyone's birthday. It's a small thing, but she gets videos together, she gets photos together. and everyone loves it. You know, to get a birthday, you know, tribute, it's lovely, and it's
a
just
real
something
act of
people
love,
appreciate.
isn't it?
It is. And it takes work, you know. I don't think people realise there's so many in the group, you know, 280, whatever it is, and Rani's onto it, you know. She's got it all charted out, you know, and that's a lot of work. So that's lovely. So thank you, Rani.
And this is how, you know, people just get inspired to do things, don't they? And to bring things forth. And that's how the art thing started in a way, was that it comes from inspiration and people just having fun with life and creating something.
Exactly.
Yeah, so let's invite the group in, shall we?
All right, here we are with Larry coming in live for the live Q&A. So we will continue that lovely interview experience, rolling it right into some extra questions that we've come up with. So welcome, Larry. Thanks for joining us here live from London or from England.
Great to be here.
Yeah. And we have Virginia here who will be presenting tomorrow. So
Hi, everybody.
Three of us. Yeah, thank you. Three of us here will have a nice, lovely chat. And let me just kick off with some questions here. One that commonly comes up is, what is the difference between Black Sheep artists, right, and the Black Sheep of the universe, right? You have these two groups, so what's the distinction?
Yeah, the Black Sheep of the Universe was the original one that I formed. I had no intention originally of forming a second group. Obviously, it was Seth inspired, as you can tell by the name. But it was never exclusively a Seth group, because there were lots of people I've known from other groups, you know, very switched on people, you know, in terms of metaphysics, spiritual or whatever. And I wanted a fusion of the two, you know, carrying forward relationships in previous groups and then, you know, inviting sort of people from the Seth groups in, which I thought would be a good mix. And that's the way it seems to have proved to be. So the Black Sheep of the Universe was first, but suddenly realised as the weeks went on, there was a huge amount of art being, because I didn't have many rules, you know, so people could post what they wanted, you know, very minimum set of rules, really. And each day, you know, lots of art was appearing on Black Sheep Universe, to the extent where some members were saying, hold on a minute, you know, we love coming on here every day, but there's so much to see, there's so much being posted, and a lot of it was artistic in content. So I decided, you know, I had a little consultation with the Universe group and said, how about me setting up a dedicated group, you know, to the art alone? And I didn't stop them posting in the Universe. They could still post in there, but it seemed a natural home to have a Black Sheep artist group. And sort of knowing that, you know, Rob and Jane, their relationship with Seth, you know, so much was based in art, you know, it seemed a logical progression to just have a sister group. So that's what I then did, you know, set up the Black Sheep Artists, which is primarily about all forms of art, you know. So that's where the two really originated from. And many members, you know, from Black Sheep Universe are in the Black Sheep Artist group and vice versa. Well, I'd have to say that the Universe group is bigger by definition. But, you know, lots of people share the same groups, although don't always participate in both groups. You know, they choose what they want to do day by day, really.
Well, that's great. And I have to say, you know, I literally ran into you. I met you, you know, within the last month. So all this came together very quickly. So I'm learning myself about you and the groups. And I'm kind of surprised to find out that it just didn't start as an intention to share the arts. Actually, this was a bigger vision. And then the arts just kind of became a subgroup out of the Black Sheep of the Universe. So that's an interesting tidbit I didn't realize.
I think the art wanted expression, Tom.
Yeah.
It was going to express itself. And we were just like the medium through which it's expressed. So art will out.
Yeah, and honestly, I thought it was the other way around, that the bigger metaphysical came out of the arts. But that's interesting that the arts found you in a manner of speaking. And that leads me to my next question was, you know what, how did the arts find you? Like, are you an artist yourself, or do you just enjoy bringing people together and that's just the way it found you?
I'm not what I would call a natural artist. I used to do art at school, and I used to enjoy drawing, but that's sort of waned in recent years. So it's more seeing the art that people were producing in the Universe group, and recognising how, lovely that all was and how skilled and talented the people were. I wanted to give them the platform, really. So the only contribution that I do make, really, in art terms is photography. I know Ruth, in one of her slots, I think already mentioned about, despite her art and how she loves, it's sort of brought back to art in a really, sort of reopen that door. But she loves taking photos, mainly of, perhaps natural settings. And I regard like photographic, I call it art, but, the photography. I mean, I've been out today, taking lots of photos down at Hever Castle there, a lovely castle in Kent, and I'll be posting them on the artist group. So that's my contribution, really, posting art, doing some set quotes and everything else, but just really I allow the artist group to sort of do their own thing, really, with just the occasional posts from myself about on the photography side. Mainly I want them to produce their art and, have a free space for doing that, where there's not too much criticism about it, constructive, if any, and people can just share what they want, no inhibitions, really. And that's my contribution, probably the photography more than anything.
Well, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. So let me see what kind of other questions we have here. So, for example, are you considering hosting, or have you already hosted physical gatherings to share the arts? Or is this so far been online only, or is that something coming down the pike?
Yeah, not specifically with the arts, Tom, but a lot of members in the Universe group and therefore the artist group, we do meet up, in some of the videos I think you've played already. I mean, I bump into Les Hughes. Les lives in London. There's 10 million people in London. And me and Les are always bumping into each other because there are no coincidences and we are drawn together. So we might be shopping, we'd be on a London tube with millions of people, and me and Les just bump into each other. And then we arrange to meet up as well, to have coffee and go over wildlife places. And we've met up with other members as well. I've done that several times. There's several members of the group who just love to meet up, mainly in London at the moment. But this year, for example, Leah Cox is coming over from the States. There might be a few other people coming over to London, and we was hoping to have a Black Sheep, meet up there, So I wouldn't say specifically for the art, but it's about conversation. It's about sharing experiences. And we just feel, pretty okay in each other's company. Those of us that have met up, unusually feel that although we've met online, you've got that, what some people would regard as this remote connection. When we meet up, it's just like we've known each other, in other lifetimes, which we probably have. And it's very easy. We all find it very easy to just meet up for the first time and just go with the flow. I'm not talking about Seth all the time. We do talk about Seth. It naturally comes in. But just enjoy each other's company, because I think it's sort of like-minded spirits, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, I think a lot of us feel that resonance with other Seth readers. We just resonate with some of those basic tenets. You create your own reality and whatnot. So yes, I can understand that. So I want to ask if Virginia, do you have any things you want to add in, or any questions?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, Larry. I think I heard you say during your talk that you had also at some point been part of another group where you were really exploring or sort of applying some of the Seth material in a particular way. And unfortunately, that group kind of didn't continue. But I'm interested in your thoughts about that, of that kind of transition. And certainly the artwork is another way of doing it, but kind of that transition from reading the material to then really utilizing it in your life and other people's lives. I don't know, any comments about that kind of how it shows up experientially?
Yeah, so the people that I met originally in this, Anita Morjani, she has appeared at one of the Seth conferences, actually, had a near-death experience, with a cancer. So I knew a lot of people from that group, and they're very lovely people. A lot of them are now in Black Sheep Universe and artists. And that out of that, there was another group formed. I'm not going to mention it because it ended up not going forward, parting of the ways there. But, within that group, you could call it an experiment, really. And there was a lot of people that were getting on another level again and just sort of experimenting with our relationships and consciousness. A lot of them weren't Sethers. So I possibly felt that I was pushing, like all new Seth readers, we like to share it and we like to, if someone gives a question and they haven't figured out the answer, if we know internally or through Seth, there's an answer, a potential answer there, I would share that. Because I'm always doing that. So Seth said this, and you probably have a few people say, "Oh, he's going on about Seth again." But that was the relationship in that group, and I needed to form my own groups out of that. When that group sort of finished, I needed those relationships to carry on for the exploration of consciousness. Really, I mean, I think they needed to carry on. So it was like that expression, by Kevin Costner in that film, build it and they will come. So I just formed the two groups and then the people come and they come and go, and they come and they go. And, hopefully a lot of people in the groups feel it's a good space, to present their art and their thoughts and feelings about all sorts of things. Sethian concepts to the Sethis in the group, but to others, they're not Sethian concepts, they're inner concepts, and it's surprising how many other people bring in the same language to the groups, but they've not really read Seth books. They're reading the Seth quotes now, so they're being exposed to it, which is great. They're learning, but we're learning from them as well, So I think it's been a learning experience for everyone, and that continues, obviously, every day.
Yeah, any sense about that? I don't know where things are going from here or what it looks like is going to continue to emerge, of course, especially as hopefully COVID, all of that begins to settle down. Do you have any sense of kind of where the next wave is going with all of this?
Good question. It goes where it goes, not in the business of predicting, but I'm just thinking back to your original question, actually, about the art. I did have this feeling that I wanted to get the artists to present their work. So a few years ago, probably about 3 or 4 years ago, there was an art shop near where I worked in London, Tottenham Court Roadway. And I went in and talked to the person who ran the art shop, and there's a gallery, and set it all up for our black sheep artists to be able to exhibit their work. It took a lot of doing, but that never came to fruition in the end, which is a shame. I think it takes a lot of work to organise it. But I thought that's a great platform for the artists, to hire out the London gallery. And then, if they can sell their work, great. So that was perhaps an example where I tried to make it real in the real sense, not just us sharing an online platform and showing each other the work. I wanted to I was so proud of their work. I wanted them to be able to display like artists do in galleries. And I've had a few, dreams about that as well. One of the artists I've presented there, Eleanor Gillespie, she's not in the group. She's a young girl of part Korean heritage, and she lives a very solitary life, really, but she paints, her and her brother, they live through their paintings. There's one behind me on the wall, that's of my cat, Poppy. I think I've got that in the collage that we put up. And, I had sort of dreams about her exhibiting in, I don't know whether there's some, big gallery, the Tate galleries in London. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you heard of the Tate Gallery, our famous galleries. And there's one down in Cornwall. And I had this dream about her exhibiting work there with this magnifying glass hanging down where people could come in and look at it. And this gallery in London, which I wanted the Black Sheep artists to exhibit, I persuaded Les Hughes, he's been a secretary for 40-odd years. Many of you might know Les. And Les come along with me to one of these exhibitions. And lo and behold, we walked in there, and on the wall, there was a painting with a magnifying glass hanging next to it where you could look at it. It just sort of spoke to me that one day I hope that, Eleanor's work will appear, as I saw it, in the takedown in Cornwall. Now, whether that happens in this reality or another probability, I don't know. But it was a validation to me that, I was seeing something that, had either happened or is happening elsewhere or could happen in what we call the future. So, yeah, that was where I hoped that the art would break out and express in the bigger sense. But, not chasing that at all. If it happens of its own validity, really.
Yeah,
so that's a long answer. I probably not answered your question yet.
No, it's beautiful. It was actually the answer to both questions. In on one level, it's the experiential level of Seth and where does that go, and it's kind of also indicating where it may go, at least in part, is some of this artwork and creativity moving out into the world more too. And actually, this anticipates a third question I had for you. There's kind of this ongoing question of what's the next generation of Seth readers and people interested in it, and with younger people. And I think there's kind of an implication there too, that the arts and the expression of intuitive art and the inner self and some of what we really get into with Seth may be coming together in some ways. Again, it's just one vein in which the Seth material is moving forward, but potentially very.
Yeah, I don't see the Seth material static. I see growing membership, growing interest. Part of my forming the group is to give an opportunity for others who haven't read Seth to, hopefully see some validation of their own inner thoughts and something that can give it expression in a way that they perhaps haven't had it expressed before. But if that doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But, they've all got children, so I see certainly, the Seth teachings as sort of not being stuck in time like some people may feel. It's evolving to me all the time, and, it speaks to me every day through what I read and what I know, and I think that will grow. That's what it's meant to do. That's what he said it would do, and it's doing it. Through forums like this as well. This sort of forum wasn't happening in Jane and Rob's time. You imagine what's happened since they sat down. With those classes all those years. You could say it's grown exponentially. Both in terms of readership. Not just selling books, but just being out there. Global, international interest in this stuff, and quite rightly as well.
Yeah, I would definitely have to agree that our civilization, the parallel reality we are experiencing is that the material itself grows. And even if it's not labeled under, Seth proper, the whole idea that we're inside, some kind of a matrix, right? As the popular movies even demonstrate, this idea that, our thoughts influence our reality and that we can break out into a much larger reality out of that. And so, I see signs of this everywhere. When I started reading the material, it seemed like things were a little more hard-bed physical reality. And now it's like, quantum physics, and you see, it's like it's bleeding in, and it's coming in. And it's not just through the Seth books, it's just our own higher minds we're more and more connected, and more of that is bleeding in. So I definitely see that. So Larry, thank you so much for joining us. We're starting to run into the next segment in the conference, but thank you so much for joining us and for having this live Q&A. I feel like we could talk for another hour, right? And so maybe something else will pop in after the conference where that can happen, right? And we can share more. But thank you for being here. We're going to sign off now. We're going to move into a break, and then